Welcome to the KIX EMAP podcast, a podcast where we interview important leaders in education from Europe, Middle East and North Africa, and the Asia and Pacific regions. I'm your host, Ryan Allen, assistant professor at Soka University of America here in Orange County, California. My own background is in international and comparative education. I just wanted to drop a little update from the podcast. This is our second episode after the recent extension of the KIX program and our KIX EMAP hub until 2027. You probably noticed a number of changes occurring in the hub recently, including the rebrand from EAP to EMAP. This means we welcome 14 new countries into the hub, and we're certainly excited about these new interview opportunities. Additionally, we will be introducing a couple of new innovations to the KIX EMAP podcast, with special episodes where we will have more than one guest for conversations around specific themes that are of interest to the audience. So be on the lookout for those. Thank you. Let's start the show. Today we have Dr. Iwan Syahril, Director General of Early Childhood Education, Basic Education, and Secondary Education in Indonesia's Ministry of Education, Culture, Research, and Technology. We talk about his educational journey from Indonesia to the US and back home again, moving from academia into policymaking, and bringing Indonesia into the KIX network, and a lot more. I think you're going to have fun with this one. I certainly did. Let's jump to it. All right. Thank you. It's wonderful having you here. I'm excited to have this interview. If we could, you did your BA in international relations in your home country of Indonesia, but you eventually move into education and you go abroad to Teachers College Columbia and then do a PhD at Michigan State. Can you maybe talk about that trajectory into education and kind of what got you thinking about that and even wanting to go abroad in the first place?
Oh, thank you. This is quite a like one of the maybe like the most important moment in my life when I decided to get into education. First of all, I need to say that my background, my family, my father was a teacher.
Mhm.
But he didn't want me to be a teacher. He told me like bluntly when I was in first grade, all right, so you can be, like this and that, but don't say that you want to be a teacher. And then, I'm sure school and so on. So I grew up not wanting to be a teacher, and never registered in my head that I wanted to be a teacher. But when I was in college, I started to teach accidentally. First, my father was sick, so I had to replace him in teaching English as a foreign language in his classes. He had an English school in West Sumatra in Indonesia. And then I felt like some funny moment. I would say that magical. So I just felt like I knew what I was doing. So I was like just pretending him because I watched him all my life, I think, growing up. Uh, I was a student. And I just felt very comfortable doing that, doing just like teaching and just like sharing with different age groups from elementary school up to university students and also actually people from who are already at work. And I was surprised to find that I was comfortable. Of course, I was nervous, but I was actually enjoying the moment. So I was teaching for a month until my father got recovered. And then I got another experience doing exchange program in Canada, where again, like accidentally, I was placed in school. So initially, I wanted to go to Quebec because I wanted to learn French.
Mm.
And then then the Quebec program was closed. So then they moved to British Columbia. But as a compromise, they placed me in a bilingual school so that I could still learn French. And that was my exposure about just like being in the school and just like helping the teacher and so on. And I felt this is very interesting. I was in an elementary school there, saw like a different kind of education compared to how it was in Indonesia. And then when I returned from that program, I just continued teaching because I felt that I didn't want to lose my English. So I started teaching as just like as a side job. But I have to tell you, like fast forward after I graduated, that there was my moment. I call this my Meet Joe Black moment. Do you know that movie?
Yeah, sure. Brad Pitt, right?
Yeah, Anthony Hopkins, Brad Pitt, Claire Forlani, right? So, and basically there was like someone who's already senior, Anthony Hopkins, and the death angel came to him and wanted to take his soul, but this death angel wanted to experience as a human being for a while.
Mm,
And but this guy, the senior guy, knew that like he would die soon. This was the death angel. So the death angel was using Brad Pitt in this story already dead. So he's using the dead body's person to the death angel to experience how it was being a human. And but after that movie, I asked this question to myself because there was a scene in that movie, like Anthony Hopkins says something like, 65 years, uh, I feel happy and no regret, something like that, right?
mm,
And then after that movie, I asked my question, oh, that's very powerful. How would I feel when, I knew that I was dying, and that moment when the death angel came to me, right? And I lived life and I feel like happy. And there are two things that I remember. First, my family is happy with me. So for me, it's very important. And the second one was I feel like I've lived a meaningful life. And I asked, what would that be? I would just want to be happy.
mm,
And I just realized actually teaching makes me happy. So after that, Meet Joe Black moment, I fully decided that I wanted to pursue my career as a teacher and then pursue my degree in education because my
mm,
previous academic training was in international relations. I was supposed to work as a diplomat or international business, and so on. And before Meet Joe Black moment, I had been teaching, but I thought it was just like a transition before I actually applied to the foreign affairs department or work for international companies. But I asked that question, and what would make me very happy if I want to die is meaningful life teaching. So I decided to stay in education, and I never look back.
wow. That I love that. That's wonderful. And the funniest part about that is my mom's in education too. She's an educator, retired now, and she told me the same thing. She said, "Don't go into education, whatever you do." So of course, what do? I go into education. I become an educator. That that seems to be the common denominator a lot of times. I have another question that I actually asked this to a lot of my guests. You did your PhD in the United States, and then you actually went back to work in Indonesia, and that's a issue that a lot of scholars have to face when they go and do a degree abroad. How did you come to that choice to come back, and sort of what was the thought process in returning home?
It was difficult. Actually, I wanted to. There was part of me who wanted to stay in the U.S. and also wanted to pursue my career as a professor in the U.S. And I felt that
Mm,
um, I think staying in the community where we know what's going on with the latest update with the knowledge, like with this scholarly engagement would happen very intensely of course, in top universities in the US, and it's much easier to be to do research and so on compared to if I go back to Indonesia. To be honest, I think I decided to go back to Indonesia first because I promised my university that I would be back. So in Indonesia to become a professor, you at the moment the requirement master's degree is enough. So I was actually already working at university before my PhD at the Michigan State. So I promised my colleagues that I would be back, and I just like first just okay return to Indonesia and then just like see how it was. But I wasn't happy, so I applied for jobs again to assistant professorship in different places, mainly in the United States. Um, and I almost got a job near Seattle for sure. Seattle is one of my days to grow old, and I love the coffee, and I just like laid back, and I felt that oh, this is a nice place to live. Um, Almost, I just got a job there, if not for the visa requirement. So during the Trump administration, it was made very difficult for international People just to work in the United States, wait for visa was like forever, basically. So then the university realized about that, and they didn't want to take that risk. So then they decided to select another candidate. And then I asked myself, all right, so maybe maybe the what is like what my fate is. Okay, let's stay in Indonesia. I accept it. I make peace with it. And then I started to be involved in work in the communities in Indonesia with schools, with us, experts and just like scholars, a grassroots movement. Just like like to see again, like my curiosity as a education scholar to understand what are the concerns, and also I'd like to share my whatever that I can share with others. And that actually kept me going and expanding my network suddenly. And then I felt that, oh, actually, I can make quite a meaningful impact being in Indonesia. And after that moment, I feel that, yeah, I'm at home here. Now, if I go back to the United States, I feel like, yeah, this is nice, but my home is in Indonesia, and I realize there's so many exciting problems that we can solve here. Because again, like we are such a gigantic country, and in terms of problem, the complexities are just like multiple, and layers are multiple layers. And so it's exciting if you're interested in problem solving. Indonesia is one of the very exciting places to be in the world, and I think that's what I decided to do as a scholar.
Wow, yeah, a wonderful. I think maybe in the end, probably was tough in that moment during that time period, but I think maybe serendipitous for the country actually, because your current position is the director general of early childhood education, basic education, and secondary education in the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research, and Technology. Can you maybe talk about this role and kind of the day-to-day of what you're doing, other than doing podcasts with myself, and what are kind of the pressing issues are you sort of grappling with right now?
Well, it's quite a loaded title, right? You can call me Director General of Schools. Basically, I'm in charge of like all schools in Indonesia.
Mm.
We have about more than 300,000 schools in Indonesia. Um, and the day-to-day life, it's I think again, like I center my role is problem solving, and what problem that actually like to answer your question, the pressing issues, there are two things, right? The first one is learning crisis. We know this prior to the pandemic that Indonesia as a system, we are stuck in terms of the quality of our learning from our students. And in terms of access, we've made progress, but in terms of the quality of the learning, I think we're stuck. And we have a lot of data for this, for international assessment, our national assessment. So this is the heart of what we're doing at the moment in our transformation in education. The second one is, of course, the pandemic, the learning loss. Is learning crisis exacerbated by the learning loss. So I think what we're trying to do is how we can move the ecosystem forward while we are doing recovery, but also we need also to do leapfrogging. We need to innovate at the same time. So how to balance this, because we don't want to play catch up, but we also want to see the future and see what's relevant, and therefore make some innovations to go there. I think that's basically what we're trying to do. Foundational skills. Before the pandemic, the COVID-19 hit us, we already actually decided that the foundational competencies are the key things that we need to focus on going forward, which is the literacy and numeracy, and also character. So these three becomes like the how we can move the stakeholders towards this common goal, because we believe that for the future, the human resources that we need, the citizens that we need are the ones who are lifelong learners. And to become lifelong learners, you must have the ability to think, the ability to problem solve creatively. So then a lot of changes, disruptions that we are facing, we can handle this well, and even we can thrive. And not only that, the human resources that are competent, but they can thrive and they become the productive and responsible citizens of not only for Indonesia, but the world moving forward. So how to translate this into policies, into programs, and with our very super decentralized system. We have 552 now autonomous governments.
Wow.
And that's not easy at all. So yeah, that's actually I need to always think about how to translate that vision into policies and programs, so then we can move the ecosystem forward. Therefore, we can move the country forward.
That's wonderful. That's fantastic. Before the show started, we were kind of chatting a little bit, and actually, you mentioned innovation, and you told me a story about something that I thought was really innovative. Just starting a podcast and reaching out to the schools and meeting the students. Can you maybe just like give a little plug, even though it's in Indonesian? I just think it's such a cool idea. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind?
Yes. So I think one of my biggest aha moments as a policymaker was that realizing that comms, especially strategic communication, is as important as good policies and good programs. So you have good policies, good programs. If you don't back it up with good strategies for your communication, that will be actually that can become disastrous, and we have experienced this in the past. So I'm always interested in exploring ideas about how we can communicate the policies, the impact, with layman language. So we think that it's better not for us, the policymakers, to explain, to maybe like tell the story and so on. Why don't the stakeholders tell the stories to each other? So now I travel quite frequently to different places in Indonesia, especially those in quite remote areas, and then ask them to like share their story, but then in the format that is also comfortable for audience to hear, which is podcasts. It actually is a video podcast, so that they can see also the visual of where we are. So
Great.
we are doing podcasts now in schools, elementary school, lower secondary, upper secondary. One was a school in the middle of the jungle, in the middle of it's a forest, and then there is a school also in the westernmost of Indonesia. It's like the very, very island that is the western part of it. We have 17,000 island, right? So
Wow.
This went to this westernmost island and visited a school there and talked to students and talked to not teachers, of course. Sometimes we include principal, but students actually now we feel that the more powerful voice of the stakeholder that can communicate the impact of what's going on in schools as a result of all the policies and the programs that we have created. They just like use their own language about their joy of learning, or maybe like some problems that they're facing. And for us, that is very genuine. So a lot of I think times we think that students actually cannot really say much about education transformation. They can, and they are very observant, and their voice again is very unique and very genuine. And that layman language thing, like they speak with such clarity and everyone can understand. And I think this is how we communicate the impact of the policies and the programs that we have. So
Wow. I love that. That just sounds like a wonderful thing that I would like to see more places do that locally. That would be fantastic. I have this question that I don't get to ask very often because often I'm talking to academics and seeing how they interact with the government. But you are in the government, and so, but you also were an academic too, as we just talked about. So when you work with academics, or now that you're on the sort of the other side of the chair, is there something that academics miss? Is there something we miss as I sit in my office at a university? I critique the government or write something. Is there something maybe that you had sort of an epiphany or realize like, oh, okay, well, this is why I can't do X, Y, and Z, or just something that academics are maybe in our quote unquote ivory tower, if we want to take the critique there.
Yeah, I have to admit that I came to this role with actually very much the framework of as an academic, and I've changed. I think I've been transformed. I learned a lot from my minister. My minister is he's very. It's from the business world. But what I learned is the principle of execution in terms of implementation of good ideas. So we can have a lot of like these good ideas, and but how to translate them into programs and policies with very limited resources. The resources are not only about the human resources or budget, but also time, and also the stakeholders who also vary, and considering all the political context as well, competing interests from political parties, the parliament. That's not easy at all. And how to decide on priorities. So if everything is important, then nothing is important. If everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority. But when, and as a leader, you have to make a decision, and you cannot make everyone happy. And then you cannot also explain to the satisfaction that many people wanted. Um, as an academic, you have the luxury of time. You see a problem, and then you study, okay, what have what have been said about this issue, and then you study about that, and then you kind of like come to what are your research questions, and then how are you going to answer those questions. Then you collect the data, and then you analyze it, and then you have come to the conclusion. And everything is very structured, systematic, and then you have time to do all those things, and you are not pressed with so many contested issues to make decisions. I think this is the difference. I think with the academic, for me, I have to make decisions, uh, and you have to deal with so many stakeholders, and sometimes we cannot wait. I think the speed of politics, with the speed of change, sometimes change is not sometimes, or change is slow. Meaningful change takes time, but and then you have to deal with the politics, which the speed of the politics is very fast. So this is it's never going to be ideal, but you have to make decisions. I think as a policymaker, we have to see the big picture. You have to have a clarity of purpose. I think that's very clear from our top leadership, which is about the students and their learning. We are problem-solving learning crisis. And then you have to create or make decisions on how to use the resources, and make bold decisions early, as actually as early as possible, for the direction of change that we want to where we want to go to. Without this clarity of purpose and make bold decisions early, it's very hard. And then I mentioned earlier that you have to have a good communication team. So this is, I think, I see sometimes my friends from the universities, and they try to give input and everything. I understand. I totally understand. The thing is, the layers of complexity from the policymakers angle is something that is many, I think, academics miss because they just deal with one specific issue or some specific areas, but not the whole complexity. And although that I'm also a policy scholar, but I never realized this decentralization is so puzzling for me now. How to handle, how to. I agree with decentralization in principle, but in terms of execution, it's super difficult. That 552 local governments in Indonesia at the moment. Ryan, can you imagine if I gather all of those heads of education office from 552 and I ask them to, okay, please share what are the top priorities of your local government in 5 minutes. So I turn to all of them, and you know how many hours it takes?
It just added up, yeah.
550
times 5, right?
times 5 minutes. It's easily close to 48 hours, nonstop, no break, no sleeping. That's almost 48 hours, almost 2 days.
Jeez.
So that's like that's what it means if you want to like to manage this whole complexity. So therefore we need to use many kind of intervention, include technology is one of them, and how to simplify the procedures so we don't actually make ourselves difficult with our own regulations. So how to simplify it so then the execution can be much also easier.
Great. Wow. I mean, that's an important message. And again, as an academic and as a former academic, these are important messages that I think that we need to hear and definitely share with my students. And I think other academics listening will certainly share it as well. We're coming to the end, and when this has been such a wonderful interview, and we're also excited here at KIX because Indonesia is joining the network, and so maybe if you could give our network and the broader audience sort of a word on Indonesia and coming over, and maybe how it's important to work with the local experts in Indonesia for us.
Well, I have to say at the moment, we are experiencing maybe one of the most radical transformations in education that this maybe the world has ever seen. I think in the past 4 years now, we have changed quite fundamentally a lot of key structures in our education system so then we can move forward. We decided to shift the focus from the rote memorization, standardized tests to more like a survey-based national assessment, focusing on literacy and numeracy and character. We have also launched a new curriculum, which 30 to 40% of the content is cut from the previous curriculum, so to allow students to learn more deeply, and to allow teachers the flexibility to teach at the right level. This is again like something quite radical compared to how it was before, where certain weeks all Indonesia should be on the same page. Now we allow teachers, we give the permission them to meet the students where they are. And also we introduce 20 to 25% of the curriculum therefore the teaching and learning in school with project-based learning. So when I mentioned about this podcast earlier, Ryan, one of the most consistent things that we have found was students are happier, especially when they do project-based learning. They mention about this like so passionately, and students who were disengaged suddenly are engaged during the project. And they actually even ask the teachers to take initiative, and they want the teachers to do that again, to do more projects. So they're more engaged. So this is the curriculum, and we also introduced the technology, and we decided not to for student-facing platform, but it's more like the teacher-facing platform, because we believe that the teachers are still very, very important, the key actually transformation in education. And I think now we have more than 2.9 million teachers on this platform where they can learn about the modules that if they are confused about what to do with the new curriculum, they have modules that they can just like implement. They also have some kind of training, independent training there, and they also have forums that they can share with each other. And they also have the PLC, professional learning community, on this platform as well. And I think we are embarking at the moment with one of the perhaps quite progressive view of education, and with the hope that we can transform the human capital of the nation going forward for our national development. But to your question about how to engage with the local experts, I feel like for countries like Indonesia, we are very open to a lot of collaboration. We have this notion of our local wisdom called gotong royong. Gotong royong is having the empathy and solidarity to work together towards a common purpose. And I think we are doing our education transformation now with this spirit of gotong royong, sense of solidarity, and also to collaborate towards this common purpose. So I think we would love to invite the international development community to be part of this. Either you want to do research, or you want to maybe pilot some maybe good ideas. We are very open to it, and we have a lot of regions. I think Indonesia, like I said at the beginning, is an exciting place for scholars actually, for research, advanced knowledge, and to gain like perspectives for problem solving in whatever areas that we are passionate about. So yeah, I think it's important to understand the local perspectives, because just like what we believe in education and the student-centered or contextual learning, that context matters, and context can also help to generate the variety of contexts help to generate new knowledge for the advancement of scholarship.
Great. Wonderful. Well, it sounds like an exciting time in Indonesia, an exciting time at KIX with the country coming in and other countries coming in. So really, Iwan, this has been wonderful. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much for having me, Ryan. All the best.
And this concludes our KIX EMAP podcast. Of course, the opinions expressed on the podcast are solely those of the host and the guest. The KIX EMAP podcast is made possible by KIX, which stands for Knowledge and Innovation Exchange. KIX is an initiative of the Global Partnership for Education. Globally, KIX is administered by the International Development Research Center in Canada. NORAG in Geneva hosts one of the 4 regional KIX hubs. Find us on the NORAG or GPE websites, where you can subscribe to the podcast and newsletter, or learn about our other activities, including KIX research project updates. Additionally, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube at KIX EMAP. You can also directly subscribe to the podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, and you'll receive notifications of each new podcast episode. Thanks for listening.